You.
Good to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Having a slow morning and just got to the studio and happy about the sunshine.
Where is your studio?
In Berlin, here in East Berlin.
East Berlin. Oh, remarkable. Whereabout in East Berlin? It's a remarkable place. I was there not long
Yeah,
ago.
in Schöneweide. Have you heard about that?
Tell me.
It's a southeast, sort of, a little bit, like Neukölln maybe, and then that's already southeast, and then a little bit more southeast, out of the
Wonderful.
ring.
There's remarkable architecture
Totally,
around there.
and
Yeah.
there's yeah, it's like an industrial area around here. There's lots of studios and industry really.
Yes.
I like that.
I have a good number of friends who moved to Berlin actually over the course of the last decade, and it was one of the most popular places, maybe it still is, to for designers and artists to go to, and so there was a sort of a mecca for artists and designers.
I guess totally. I mean, it's I guess one of the reasons why I moved here as well. Like I'm from East Germany, and I moved here also like a little bit more than 10 years ago only. So same reason, I guess. A little bit unconscious, I guess, back then, but it played out well in the end.
Oh, very good. Well, I'm very pleased to meet you and to speak with you. And thank you so much for taking the time to submit your work, which we very much enjoyed, Melanie and myself, Larissa, and the other people in the Misfits who were part of deciding who to speak to.
Nice.
And
nice, yeah.
I wanted to learn more about your creation, why you submitted it, and what is it that you're exploring. And also, to what extent is your exploration in relation to perception? I personally think everyone's touching perception one way or the other. Obviously, artists are like yourself, but I'd like to know in what way you're influenced by maybe what we're doing, and maybe more importantly, how you're trying to influence other people regarding perception. So that's a lot of stuff right there. Let's go.
No, I like it. I like it. It's cool. Like I mean, just to start off with, like I wasn't really familiar with what you are doing and the rest of your team, like and the Misfits. It was a friend of mine from London. That's where you're all based, I guess, or at least in the UK.
We're a bit distributed. We're in the States as well, in New York. My creative director is in Canada. My head of science is in the UK. We have an Italian designer, so we're
okay, maybe. Okay, I see. Yeah, maybe I was a bit off there, but my a friend of mine, Carl Smith, sent me the call and was like, "Hey Marcel, I just got that. You should send something along." And that was on the day of the deadline. It was like, okay, let's do it. Like let's see what's coming out. So I'm really happy that it works out and we got a chance to chat because yeah, like your and coming to your question, that might sound a little bit rude or something. Maybe I don't remember exactly what I sent you. As a matter of fact.
Maybe it wasn't you. Oh shit! Maybe this is the wrong call.
No. I remember I sent you something.
So you submitted the spirals. So you had the spinning. There are a couple of things. So first, you introduced me to the installation you had with the laptop spinning around.
Okay.
Right, that was one. But the more specific one was the spirals with the colors.
The drawings.
The drawings.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I thought that I might have only sent you one thing, but seems like at least two things. So that's interesting. Yeah, because it's a little bit of also like a unconscious thing. This kind of spiraling and rotation. It's kind of coming back to me sometimes, and it's coming really from two different places. These two works. Yeah, so they just in the end sort of happened a little bit.
So tell me more about the, maybe describe the works for people. They'll be able to see them, of course, because they'll be on the website. But maybe just paint a picture for people in their minds, but also why the passionate interest in spirals. I personally actually have a tremendous interest in spirals and in circles for various reasons, but I want to know your inspiration.
That's great. Now I would like to also hear from you, because I guess my like depth into that might not be that thorough. So the one is the upward spiral drawings. It's a series of wax drawings, like it's industrial wax markers on paper, and they are drawn or plotted with a machine that I built. It's just a pen plotter, and it's like I'm doing this kind of stuff a lot to generate compositions or designs with algorithms, with my own software, and then using plotters to put it in the analog world again. It's kind of going that route. And the upward spirals, I never really had the chance yet to put it in words, so it's great that you asked about that. Maybe something's coming along there. It's coming more from like this spiritual feeling of when you are in an upward spiral, like when some things are when you're alive, and some things are having a positive direction. This is kind of what I wanted to manifest with that a little bit, but at the same time it also because they are symmetric in that sense, so they can also stand for the downward spiral, which is something that me and everybody also knows, when everything kind of goes to south and you are not in a good place, and kind of one thing comes after the other, and it can be a very depressing place. So it's just like to put this into material, that something like this exists. That's with many of my works a little bit. It's like I'm thinking about a couple of things, and these little concepts kind of stick with me, and then I want to not forget about them, and making a work about them kind of helps me to remember these kind of ideas, which can be really, really small, just like this idea about the fact that you can be in a upward spiral, or the world can be in an upward spiral, or some kind of context.
So I'm curious, is the upward and downward spirals, is that, you're right that we get into these, society can get into them, relationships can get to them. To what extent have you found yourself in them? I mean, is it a personal, is this a general description of what it is to be human, or is this a description of what it is to be this human?
Yeah, well, it's like it's both. That's why I kind of found it also relevant to share, I guess, or to make this, or to focus on that for some time, because it's not only something that is relevant to me, but it came originally as where I'm kind of waking up one day for a moment and thinking like, oh, okay, things like the wind has changed a little bit. All of a sudden, like you're feeling good. Things are going, like things are turning to you, and it's kind of like I don't know, like your relationships having going to a different level, or your whole situation is improving, and you're coming to some kind of flow or something like that. I like to think about it sometimes as well, like that. You're like you're making like lots of baby steps in whatever is like important to you, if it's for your work, or if it's your personal development, or if it's just like to be able to live not in poverty. That you're making lots of baby steps, and if you are having like a momentum, like things can progress quicker than if you are kind of in a status quo or something, like in a plateau.
So to what extent do you think, and it could be in relation to art or in to life outside art, though I don't think there's necessarily a strong distinction between them, but on the inside versus outside. But to what extent do you think that you can have agency in the direction of the spiral that you're in? So for instance, let's take a case in point when you're working on your art. I imagine there are times when you feel like you're in an upward or a downward spiral. Let's imagine you're in a downward spiral with your art. To what extent do you think that you have agency in changing the direction?
Agency in the sense of you have control over manipulating it. It's interesting to think, but my feeling tells me that first to realize that the unconsciousness in the downward spiral or the being out of control, I guess to some extent as well, can also just kind of lead in the first place to downward spiral situation, and acknowledging that and realizing that and being realizing that this is how it is and not avoiding that, I think gives you a little bit of agency to maybe change that in case it's not where you want to be.
Is that what you do when you're, say, in a downward spiral with your art? What do you do in that moment?
You're asking what I would do if
or what have you done? Because I imagine, well, maybe you've never been in a downward spiral with your art, or stuck would be another form, or you just feel like a piece just isn't going in the right direction, or maybe all your work. Have you had that experience?
Definitely.
So what do you do in that moment? Can you think back to what you did? Because I'm thinking that what you do there in that moment of creation, I would like to think that it's general, in the same way that spirals are general for all of us and at different scales. Maybe the process by which we can flip the direction or have agency in the direction might also be general, if we apply it to creation in general. Every day we're creating our life. Yeah.
It's I mean I was just thinking about your question of what I had been doing, and I guess that's the whole reason why I kind of wanted to manifest that a little bit, because I guess I've not been dealing with that in such a productive way. Like, I have the feeling my tendency has always been just to kind of indulge in that and kind of being a little bit helpless and whatever, suffering, and also being happy with that to some degree. And it's but I've we may all making our experiences with that, and I'm 31 years now. I don't have so much I like to call it sometimes conscious life to look back onto and make your and to understand yourself in retrospect. And I think this has been a little bit of a tool for me also to kind of share this and to kind of help also the friends and the people that I show this to. But it's still right now a little bit in the early stages. It's a work that I've started during Corona times, which is not over yet. The series, I kind of stopped working on that, so I guess it's to some point finished. But I have not managed to kind of communicate my idea with that so strongly. I haven't even written a text about it. I haven't published it. I just the first kind of, if you can call it that, public explanation of my thoughts is with you right now.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. It's, I feel privileged to hear it for the first time. Very raw.
Thank you for that.
I've written a bit about spirals, both in relation to color perception and sound perception, but also in terms of perception of life and how we walk through life and the creative process itself, and spirals as opposed to circles. And of course, there's also the beautiful thing that spirals and that recursion is so fundamental to nature, right? The whole of life is cyclical. And we so often forget that. We so often think that life is linear.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We have this sort of Euclidean and Newtonian view of the world where things start and they end. And they go on a line. That line might go all over the place, but there's a beginning and there's an ending. There's a cause and an effect. But actually, nature is not like that. Nature is a complex system, which means it's the interaction between stuff. So if you take, for instance, a whirlpool, which is a spiral, right? But the whirlpool emerges from the interaction of the water molecules. So what I love about a whirlpool, and this is of course nature itself, is that it's an emergent consequence of interaction.
Yeah.
So it in some sense it doesn't exist. It's not like it's a molecule you can say there it is, and yet it has real effect on the world. Right?
Yeah.
And yet it's just an emergent relationship between the water molecules, and you could never have predicted a whirlpool by simply studying the water molecules.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's actually life. I mean, the problem with one aspect of reductionist science is, think about biology. Biology is the study of life. And yet we strip away the very thing that is life, which is the interaction between things. Right? So we continually reduce. Whereas art and so much of the great creations are actually integrating, bringing things together. And so for me, that's one of the beautiful metaphors, both literal, actual, and metaphorical, of a cycle, which is the relationships between things. And that I would also consider that to be love. To me, love is a spiral. It's not, doesn't exist in you or the other person or me and the other person, but it exists in the interaction between them. So it's the whirlpool.
Totally, yeah.
And not the individual.
I really like this. I would like to read a little bit what you've been up to, because there's a couple of things that I want to maybe start off from this. And one little thing that you just mentioned, which is kind of striking to me, is like, first you're saying it, and it's that many things are in that life like is a cyclical thing, but the property of the spiral is that it's cyclical. Sorry, I'm
either.
Okay, that's cool. That it's, but once you made the round, you're not at the same spot, so it's not a circle. Like it kind of has still a direction within its cyclical movement, and I kind of like this, and I really would like to investigate a little bit of all of these kind of, whether it's psychological, mental, or if it's like physical or biological phenomena which have this progression.
Yes.
With the cycle. I think this had lots of potential.
Well, there's also metaphysical and spiritual, in the sense that I'm very interested in mythologies, and especially comparing those mythologies. And of course, one of the world's most famous person for doing those was Joseph Campbell. My instructor when I was an undergrad at Berkeley was Houston Smith, wonderful person. And if you think about Buddhism, for instance, that you never return to the place that you left, right? It's that concept of the return journey, the hero's journey. And so, but that's also the process of creativity, where you start in a place, right? And in that place, right? You're things are familiar, you know where everything is, you have that sense that of knowing, which is a great feeling, right? And then in order to be creative, you have to start letting go of what you know. So you start stepping out, and now you're stepping out, and eventually you get to a place where you just don't know. In fact, you never did, but you're actually coming to the realization that you never did, right? And so you're sort of questioning, and I call that going from A to not A, right? To let go of what you thought before. So you've come out, and now through that process, now you start coming back again. Now you start assimilating, because now you're in a new ecology, new environment. You start assimilating. Maybe you've traveled to a new country. You've moved to the southeast part of Berlin from a place where you were before. And so now you start coming back to where you were, but you don't come back to where you were exactly. You come back, in a sense, one octave higher. Think about music. As you go up the scales, it's this perception of sound is a spiral. There's C, and you come back, but you come back to C one octave higher, and then again and again. But when you come back, you actually come back to a higher dimension. So you might have known one thing here, but now when you come back, now you understand two things. Now you understand three things, you understand four things. So each time you come back to literally a more complex brain, more complex mind. So that's my view of progression. To me, it's like music. Well, thank you so much, Marcel. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thank you very much as well. It's a pleasure. Let's do again soon.
That'd be wonderful. Okay, ciao.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.